Boundaries versus choices. This is a huge issue for families, for everyone, really. You know, I have children, they're now adults now. How do we guide people? How do we balance that by not being overly firm? Now, the word boundary is used too much, in my opinion. It's very American. To me, boundaries is something you have on a cricket pitch or a field. They mean boundaries often not in a very neutral way. A lot of people say somebody needs firm boundaries. What they mean by that is, I need to shout or correct this young person. For us, boundaries just means limit setting. But too much limit setting in a low arousal approach can create more pressure and stress on the child. So it's important to remember in these examples that when we see somebody reacting to very difficult situations, the key is still the same. It's not about the boundaries and the rules. It's about us stopping ourselves from imposing something when we know it's going to escalate behaviour. That's when we have a problem with boundaries.
Mum, can I go to this party on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Where are you going?
Well, it's in Stratford and Tia's holding like a disco party.
Oh, that sounds fun. Who's going?
Obviously me and then Nell and Jazz.
Okay. Yes, I don't mind, but we're camping at the weekend though, so we're not going to be back till late on Sunday. What time does it start?
I don't know that yet, but I know it finishes at 11.
11? God, that's really late. You're going to be ever so tired, okay? It's going to be a really busy weekend. I've got work the following day, and you've got school. It's Monday. You're going to be so tired.
I won't be tired.
Okay, well, I'll be tired because I'm the one doing all the driving.
They did say they can pick me up and drop me back.
No, it's too late because I've still got to wait up for you. It's too late, okay? 11 o'clock. No, it's just a no.
Dad said I could.
I don't care what Dad said. No.
You can have too many boundaries, but you can also have too few boundaries. And I think the boundaries depend on the individual. I think somebody who, for example, has autism, anxieties, other certain issues, if there are too many boundaries there, they become confused and they don't know which boundary they should be following. Which rule is it today? I thought I was doing this, but now you're asking me to do that. There's just a lot of confusion. Whereas equally, I think if you have too fewer boundaries, then there's scope to, maybe get into trouble, safety's compromised. So there's got to be a very fine balance somewhere. And I think the balance comes from the individual, knowing that individual, setting certain boundaries, increasing them or, decreasing them as you go along. But yeah, it's an individual thing on the boundaries.
I'm saying no, okay, that's it. I'll pick you up. If we say 9:30, okay?
Really? That's way too early.
No, it's not.
I'm not coming home at 9:30.
No, it's not negotiable, okay? 9:30 is late enough. We're gonna be no. It's just not negotiable. We're gonna be tired. You've got school Monday. I've got work. 9:30 or you don't go, okay? That's it. I'm not having this discussion with you anymore, okay? No.
In the low arousal approach, we often choose to give the person choices as opposed to a boundary. A boundary can be seen by somebody as a rule and that cannot be broken. And that can be quite strict and quite harsh and sometimes hard to follow. Whereas actually, if you've given choices, you are seen to be negotiating. The person who you've given the choices to might feel they've got the situation a bit more under control. They feel a little bit more in control. So it's not like they're being told what to do. For example, I'm setting a boundary, you've got to be home by 9 o'clock and I'm picking you up. Whereas actually, if I gave them the choice and said, okay, let's work with this, we'll agree, I'll pick you up, but you can choose if I pick you up at, say, 7 or 8 or maybe even 9:30. So it's giving those choices sometimes that can help with a situation.
Should a parent negotiate boundaries? Always. There's a colleague of mine, Ross Green, in the United States, who has written a lot of work around supporting families, and he actively proposes negotiation, right? Doesn't matter whether the child is 6 or 16. If you negotiate someone, you want to create win-wins, as we say in the trade. It sounds a bit idealistic. You can't always get a win-win, and sometimes we get it wrong. But mostly if we take that attitude to negotiate, we will have less confrontation, not no confrontation. One of Ross's approaches that I use a lot in my work is he gives an example with an adolescent to say to an adolescent something like, we can't be shouting at each other again. We've got to figure out a better way. Now, let's just go away, both of us, and think about this, because this is not helping any of us, is it? Right? And that can be adapted. But to do that, you have to have the right mindset to do that. And sometimes we get into that kind of role, particularly with adolescents, where it becomes the tough love mentality. So for me, it is about negotiation. It's about negotiation stops wars. It stops confrontation. You know, we all know that all wars, like the dreaded society we live in today, at some point people negotiate and stop wars. Once they've decided they've had enough and nobody can win, then they sit around a table. Day-to-day stuff with children around boundaries particularly is that we spend an awful lot of time arguing with our kids. I'm no perfect paragon of virtue, but we spend too much time doing that. And I think the issue for me is that we have to get that balance to say, who is the best person to negotiate? It might not be me. If I have an issue with my son or daughter, it might be my wife or a friend or a partner. It doesn't have to be us. You know that phrase, it takes a community to bring a child up? That's the argument with this, that sometimes we need to think about who is going to be that negotiator. Could be an aunt, could be an uncle, could be anyone. But negotiation has to be in the short time effective because it takes the heat out of the situation. Bear in mind this, to use the analogy, when you negotiate in a difficult situation, it's an unfortunate analogy, you have to usually have a ceasefire first. You have to say, this is not working. This is clearly not working for any of us. We need to all think about this. And my view of particularly working with children especially, but also with adults, is that we infantilise people. People have a lot more social intelligence than we give them credit for. And actually, the younger we get kids getting to the idea of negotiating rather than shouting, and their parents and their supporters and staff in care environments, the better it will be for everyone.